كيف الحال؟
يا هلا يا هلا يا هلا، حياكم الله جميعا.
وصلتكم الدعوة ولا لا؟
ايوه السلام عليكم.
السلام ورحمة الله. يا هلا يا هلا، حياكم الله. السلام ورحمة الله يا أهلا وسهلا.
أهلا وسهلا، حياكم الله.
السلام عليكم، كيف الأحوال دكتور عادل؟
يا هلا يا هلا، حياكم الله. كيف الحال؟ كيف أخباركم؟
حياك الله.
طبعا أنا
حياك يا دكتور.
أهلا وسهلا، حياكم الله. حياكم الله جميعا، وسعيد أن أنتم موجودين معنا. طبعا بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. احنا بتكون طبعا التدريب بيكون مخلط بين العربي والانجليزي، بس بل الاغلب بيكون انجليزي. هذا اولا يعني كتوضيح في البدايه. وبنبدا
بس يا اخي تحت ما بي هذه هواوي.
ايوه انا غمدان معاكم الان.
هلا يا هلا. الكل موجود، احنا نبدا. في ناس بينضموا الان ثواني وبنبدا. بسم الله. I'm admitting more people so we can start. Sorry to take these 2 minutes, so I'm trying just to make sure that everyone is already with us. Yeah, now we have about 20 people. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so welcome everyone to the programs management training. It's a little bit different training. We will focus more on how like the NGO thinking, how we should manage programs and the programs manager mentality. So we will talk a lot about the NGO in general, and we will talk about management in general. It's a little bit long training. التدريب بيكون طويل. كلكم حصلتوا على الأجندة, so you have the training sessions with you. I'm trying to be more English than Arabic, so I apologize for anyone who will find some difficulties. I will try also to shift some Arabic sometimes when it's needed. So yeah, today I will make sure that the training is going to be short. So the training will be short for today, so that we agree on the agenda, we agree on the timing, if it's good or not. بنتفق على الوقت في آخر الجلسة إذا هي مناسبة لكل المتدربين، أو إذا اضطرينا إن احنا نقدمها ساعة أو ساعتين، يعني بيحصل اتفاق ويعني بيكون في نهاية الجلسة بإذن الله. Yeah, so الآن I will talk mainly I will talk mainly on English, and yeah, sorry for having my yep. Okay. Yes. So I think I will make sure that no one is wait in the yeah. Okay. We have the participants coming now, and yeah. Yeah, so now I'll be sharing the presentation, and we will start talking about the agenda very quickly. In the beginning, I would like to welcome you all. All of us in Portal team in Vilnius and also in Sana'a are very happy to have you today with us, and we will be very happy to see how we are progressing during the coming few weeks. And we hope that this training is going to have a great impact on you as persons and also on the NGOs you are working on. To go very quickly on the agenda, we will talk every week. We will be talking about 2 hours every Wednesday, and then we will agree on the best time if you think this time is difficult for many of you. And then the first week we will talk like this week we will focus on the general thinking around NGOs, around NGO management, NGO establishment, the NGO founders, the NGO programs managers and directors, how they should think and how they should think, and also how they should act, the thinking around the NGO itself. That's in general. So the next week will be about the funding strategy, about the programs, how the programs should be planned, and how the NGO strategy is going to be developed. The third week will be about donor prospecting and how we could look for donors and to find what are the best donors available for our programs. While the fourth week will be about NGO donor fit. So in the fourth week, we will talk about how the donors are doing assessment for NGOs, for the NGO capacity, and also the NGOs, they need to know the donors capacity, because the problem is not only with NGOs, sometimes the problem is with the donor to make partnerships possible. The fifth week will be proposal writing. So proposal writing will be mainly for the fifth week, and then we will go from the fifth week till we will take to the ninth week. I mean, for the proposal writing, we will end proposal writing on the week 9. And then we will talk about how to submit to the donors, how to follow up, and then we will go to project cycle management, M&E. We will talk about many details around project management cycle, and monitoring, evaluation, accountability, and learning. That's all. So it will be a little bit long, and we hope it will be of benefit for all of you. Let's hope that you could do, like, you could feel the commitment and you continue with us. Now I will go back to our main presentation, and we will have I mean, everybody will be able to ask questions at the end, and also we will all join a LinkedIn group. We will talk about it at the end. All of us will be on a LinkedIn group where we could discuss, we could agree on many things. So I hope now you will find what I am presenting of benefit to you, and please prepare your questions till the end. Yeah, so I will move to the presentation. Also, if anyone has any questions, you could write, because now we have a chat box here on Zoom. Everyone could write any question they have, so we make sure that we answer the question during our presentation. So yeah, very pleased to be with you, and thank you so much for joining us. I hope you could provide us with feedback during the next few days and the next few weeks. And please consider these kind of sessions as a kind of mutual learning. It will not be, we are not teachers, and we are not only doing like trainings. It's kind of mentoring. It's kind of mutual learning and discussion. So this is a kind of open platform for all of you. I will be very happy to know all of you personally in the next few weeks and work together to achieve the objectives of this training. As Gray Keller said, no one succeeds alone. No one succeeds alone, no one. So yeah, why we are doing these kind of trainings? Because we know that it's difficult and no one succeeds alone. And we need to learn together during like the next few weeks. Yes, this training is for NGO founders, NGO leaders and executive directors, programs managers, monitoring, evaluation and accountability and learning specialists, funding specialists, or anyone wants to be in any of the above mentioned positions. So if you are of one of these, or if you are working in one of these positions, we will be happy to have you. And also, if you want to work on these positions, we will be happy if we could help you to go and to develop your career to get one of these positions. So the training objectives. This training is designed to have outcomes, or let's say at least we will have outputs, very clear outputs. To make sure that the training is having a clear output, we will have to achieve the following. By the end of the training, every participant will be able to develop a strategy of the NGO. So you could develop a strategy for your NGO, or if you are not working on an NGO, then you need to develop a strategy for any NGO, and we will talk about that. You could volunteer for any NGO and start developing the strategy for them so that you feel like you are really learning. Also, you will develop together, we will develop the funding strategy of programs. So any program manager will need not only the NGO strategy, but we will have the programs strategy and the funding strategy. It will be very clear how we reach the donors and how we talk to them, how we communicate with them, how to search for donors. This is all included in the funding strategy, and we will talk about it. And I hope by the end of this training, it will be ready for all the programs managers that are with us today. We will also learn how to write proposals and submit the proposals to donors. I hope we could at least during the training submit proposals to 1 or 2 donors, real donors, and this is going to be a very important output to feel like we are doing we are really creating impact. Also, during the training, we will work together to prepare the project plans and reports in a kind of standardized way. Because I know most of you are working now and developing great project plans and reports. Maybe what we will focus on is how to standardize, how to make sure that all our staff are working on the same standards, using the same project plans, the same reports, so that we make sure that it's easy for the leadership of NGOs to review and to approve these kind of reports and project plans. So yeah, at the beginning, we will have to talk a little bit about NGOs and what do we mean by NGO or non-governmental organization. We will have to talk a little bit about these kind of concepts, although it is very clear for those who are working on NGOs, but still we need to understand more about the meanings of the NGOs and what is expected from NGOs and so on. Yeah, so NGOs are a non-governmental, non-profit, and purpose-driven organization that have with a vision for the community, also a mission to achieve and values to follow. So I could say it again: a non-governmental, non-profit, purpose-driven organization with a vision for a community. This is the first part, and a mission to achieve, and also values to follow. This is very important for every organization, and also this is important for even for companies. Usually, if you are working on an organization, you should ask yourself, do you know the vision of your NGO? Do you know the mission? Do you know the values? If you don't know them, there is a problem. Like the problem would be on you as a person working on an NGO, or it would be on the NGO itself that it has not great vision or clear vision and mission and values. So during this training, we will work together to clarify and try to review and work on the visions, missions, and values of each NGO. Why do we need NGOs? This is a big question. Everybody is asking, why do we need NGOs, especially those like local communities, and even the government leaders are asking, do we need NGOs? Why should we continue to work with NGOs? The answer will be is that we need NGOs to solve the community problems, to respond to the challenges and needs and priorities that the governments, private sector, and communities with their resources cannot do. Here we mean that the NGOs will not be able to work or to do everything alone, and also the government will never be able to achieve all the priorities that people are expecting from them, and also the private sector. So the NGOs or non-profits are becoming the third sector. So we have the government, the first sector, the private sector is the second sector, the NGOs are the third sector. So all the three sectors should work together to make sure that community problems are solved and that priorities and needs of people are responded to. If you see here, usually to have an NGO effective, how can we make sure that our NGO is really responding to or is really active? We need to make sure that we are working on real problems and challenges. So usually we have problems and challenges, we have affected people, and we have stakeholders or actors, development actors, and also we have interventions. If we see the problems and challenges affecting millions of people, usually governments are not able to solve them alone, as we mentioned before. Also, these problems and challenges need unlimited time to be solved and needs unlimited money to be solved. So these kind of problems are also affecting people and communities who don't have, like these people, they have few resources, they cannot solve the problems alone. This is very important that when we work on a problem, we make sure that people, they cannot do it alone. That's why we go and try to help. Stakeholders, we mean by stakeholders, the government, private sector, and NGOs. All these together, no one of them can do the solution alone and can solve the problem alone. The kind of interventions are usually like advocacy, so we are helping the government and parliaments to have new laws and policies and guidelines. Also, we try to provide and support with tools and equipment. We are doing training for stakeholders, service providers, community representatives. We do awareness campaigns, and we try to improve the quality of services, whether they are wash or health or whatever. We try to improve the access to services, and sometimes we do in-kind and cash support. This is a kind of the philosophy around the NGOs in general. When we talk about the problems, there are actually 18 global problems. There are we have 18 biggest global problems. These 18 global problems and challenges are they are known by everyone. So you will ask yourself now, when we talk about them, that the funding is usually going to these causes. So what are these 18 problems? The biggest global problems are the food insecurity. So people have low access to sufficient and diversified food. There is also a problem on water. So there is water scarcity and safe sanitation, pollution. There is unaffordable access to quality public health. Also, there is an increased malnutrition everywhere, and under 5 children and pregnant and lactating women are suffering from, especially on conflict-affected areas and poor countries. Also, people are suffering from unequal enrollment to quality primary and secondary education. Gender-based violence is everywhere, unequal access to justice, rights, and resources. There is forced migration and displacement everywhere, lack of peace and security, weak institutions, accountability and governance, lack of integration of youth and their priorities into development plans and practices, biased media, journalism. The media and journalists, because they are biased, there are a lot of difficulties to make sure that there are human rights reporting in a neutral and on the right way. There are a lot of challenges of safeguarding cultural heritage and art. We have another problem, which is climate crisis, the unaffordable clean energy, biodiversity loss, deforestation and wildlife conservation, future of work and employment, unemployment, also difficulties faced by small and medium businesses to access markets. We have a drought and agricultural loss. Also, there is another challenge, which is the future of internet and fourth industrial revolution. These are the biggest challenges. And usually these kind of challenges usually need strong programs to be solved. So the biggest challenges and problems need strong programs. I know that most of you are familiar with these kind of goals, but to link the above mentioned problems with the Sustainable Development Goals, we will notice that all the world, like globally, they know that these are like kind of global problems. So the United Nations came up with the Sustainable Development Goals to try to respond to most of these 18 challenges and problems. The Sustainable Development Goals are a kind of framework agreed by all the world leaders and the United Nations that during these years, like between 2015 and 2030, all the governments around the world are going to work on these Sustainable Development Goals. You can read them in the presentation, and we will try to link. You will find that all the programs we are trying to advocate for and training and provide like the learning and try to match donors are related to these kind of goals and problems we mentioned. Every NGO and company has a vision, mission, and value. We just mentioned this before, but just to give an idea, every NGO has a vision, mission, and values. What are they? The vision is usually the dream, what the NGO leaders and staff are dreaming to achieve. So their dream for the targeted people, for the groups and the communities they are working on. That's their vision. While the mission is what will you do to make the dream comes true? What are you going to do during like the coming few years or the coming, like, let's say 20 years to make sure that the vision is going to be true? The values. Values are principles. Usually every NGO should have values, and these values are really, really important to achieve the mission and values. So for example, you will never be able to achieve the vision without having the values and a mission. So yeah, you need to have them all. I would give you here an example, and I choose Oxfam because Oxfam is known by everyone and it is a great NGO, and this NGO is known everywhere. It is working in more than 95 countries around the world. It was established on 1948, I think. I'm not really sure about the date of establishment, but just to give you an idea is that it has been working for more than 70 years on development and humanitarian response. So this could be the best example for the vision, mission, and values. Their vision, Oxfam's vision, is a just world without poverty. So it's all around poverty and justice. If we notice that's how they formulated their vision, justice and poverty. So we need to follow now how they mentioned like their mission and values. Their mission is to help create lasting solutions to the injustice of poverty. So again, they mentioned the poverty and that they mentioned the justice. You find that the poverty and justice is their mission. So they are dreaming to see the world without poverty. They want the world without poor people. And their mission is to help create the lasting solutions to achieve like their or to make the vision come true. And also the values. The values are matching with the mission, so they are talking about empowerment, accountability, and inclusiveness. When you see the values, the three values, they are very much linked to making justice and improving people's lives and making people in better situations. So it's like they want to empower the communities, and they want the governments and the stakeholders to be more accountable, and that all services to be inclusive. That's in general. I would give you another example of our vision, mission, and values in Portal, because as I mentioned before, every organization and company should have these things. And also I would like to draw your attention here is that here they have the word, they mentioned a just world. So they are not talking about UK or United Kingdom. Oxfam is based on United Kingdom, but they know that they are not now working on in the United Kingdom. They are work all around the world. So if when you find here that they are working on many countries, so they mentioned that a just world, and they are working to make sure it is going to be like a true vision or the dream to become a truth in people's life. I will reflect this in Portal vision, mission, and value, just to give you an idea that we have to have the vision, mission, and values matching together and meaningful. So for example, in Portal 365, we have a vision is to make sure that we have smart, productive, and sustainable NGOs. So our dream is to see the NGOs smart, productive, and sustainable. That's our dream for the next 20 years. How are we going to make it? We will try to make funding accessible by NGOs worldwide. So what we are trying to do is to help NGOs to get to funding, because we know that funding is the only way that most, if not all, the NGOs need to become sustainable. This is the only business model, or the only business sustainability model that helps NGOs to grow and become sustainable. So we will focus mainly on funding. That's all what we will do during the next 20 years. And to make sure that the funding is accessible, we will try to provide NGOs with learning, clarity, and acceleration. And the values we are going to follow is that we will make sure that everything we do is around learning. Whether we are building a software, whether we are doing learning center, we are doing trainings, it's all around learning. Also around clarity and acceleration. I provided this example not just to present Portal to you because you are now with us. So I don't need to actually talk about our vision, mission, and values, but I was trying just to give you 2 examples for the vision, mission, and values. And I would like by the end of the training, when we like during the coming week, we will meet with each one of you. I mean, as NGOs, I will not talk to everyone, but to every NGO or to every person if he or she is joining us alone, to talk about the vision, mission, and values, and make sure that you really are able to apply them in your work, and also to review the NGO's vision, mission, and values. Now we talk about the NGO organogram. This is just a very small, like it's like a sample. It's not applied to any NGO, but generally the NGOs have a board of trustees and directors. Sometimes it's called board of trustees. In some NGOs they call it board of directors. Usually the board is appointing. They are recruiting a CEO or executive director, and then the executive director is responsible for the whole team, like the executive team. So anyone under the executive director is considered executive or part of the executive team. Anyone above the executive director will be a leadership. It's like a board, a member of board, or a leader in the NGO. So yeah, usually the organizations are like scale. So we have the program scale and we have the finance and operation scale. So the NGO need to work on them together. If the NGO is becoming weak in the program management, it will lose a lot of opportunities to grow and to continue and to sustain its services. And also if the finance and operations is going to be weak, then they will lose a lot of opportunities, and the donors will not be able to continue working with them. So in order to make sure that the NGO is active and working strongly, they need to focus on both. But in this training, we will not focus on anything related to finance, operations, and HR and procurement, or anything related to the finance and operations. We will focus more on the programs manager and programs management, what kind of tasks and what is expected from the programs manager, and we will go through the coming few weeks, mostly to the rules and understandings and mentality of the programs manager, and discuss a lot about it. So yeah, usually the organizations have a programs manager. Or each NGO has a programs manager, and usually the programs manager has many programs. For example, they could have health program, education program, food program, shelter program, wash, food, any kind of depends on the sectors they are working on. They will have monitoring and evaluation department. Sometimes they call it quality department. They might or they should have a funding specialist or funding officers. So yeah, so the training will be focusing on the programs, and the programs is starting from the strategy to finding donors, to writing proposals, to discussion with donors and negotiation, and also we will go to the project management and M&E. Yeah, so have you ever built a pyramid? if we talk about the pyramid, you will find a very interesting fact, which is that it has more than 5 years. 5,000 years of sustainability. So imagine you are building something that nobody on this earth is able to distract. How this pyramid is becoming so sustainable? For sure, it had a lot of planning, it had a lot of efforts, it had a lot of resources to make it that sustainable. I would consider it as a great example for sustainability, because I'm sure most of you know a lot of. For example, we have the world wonders. For example, we have the China Wall, the Great Wall of China, I mean, and there are many other buildings. But pyramid is the best example because it's still the same. Nothing has changed. You feel like it was just built 2 years ago. And the funny part is that although it is very clear for us how it looks, but nobody is able to explain how it was built. So there are a lot of theories, a lot of researches around, or a lot of theories around how it was built, how it was planned, how it could resist all the challenges, all the, let's say, how many governments, how many states, how many rulers, how many kings, how many presidents, how many leaders have been like managing or have been controlling Egypt, while they were not able to remove the pyramid from like what we see now. Here I will move to the funding. In order to make the NGO sustainable, we will focus mainly on funding. If you notice here in this figure, you will notice that everything around sustainability starting from funding. It's not starting from strategy. So usually the funding is the only sustainability business model for NGOs. The NGOs is having only funding as a business model. If you are an NGO, you will need to make funding to make sure that you are good in getting funds to be sustainable. And usually when NGOs are established, they could start from the first day looking for funding and writing proposals. They don't need a strategy from the first day. So funding is the most important. Then when they get funds, they can start to implement, they can start to do monitoring, evaluation, reporting, and then they will learn a lot from evaluation and reporting. There will be a lot of learning that help the NGO to make the strategy, and the strategy will feed into funding. So the strategy will help to make funding more clear for sure, but this is not the first step on the NGO work. The first step for NGO is to start looking for funds from day one. That's why we will like all our training will focus on this pyramid. We consider this pyramid as the sustainability of the NGO. If we want to create a sustainable NGO, we will have to build this pyramid for every program. So this pyramid is not for the NGO, it will be for every program. If you are a program manager, you will need many pyramids. For each program, you will need to create this pyramid. If you are a program manager for one program, for example, health program manager or education program manager, WASH program manager, you will need to create your own pyramid to make sure that your interventions and your work is sustainable. And I will hope that during this training we will go and we will talk a lot. We will clarify how we can create this pyramid. I didn't read the chat, so I need, I think, to go to make sure that I have some questions. Yeah. Yeah. So I have a question here. Is monitoring and evaluation is under the programs department? It is usually like monitoring and evaluation is considered quality of programs. So it is usually linked to the quality of the programs. For example, if we have an internal auditor in the NGO, the internal auditor should be under the programs and operations manager. And also the monitoring and evaluation should be under the programs manager, because M&E department is helping the programs manager to make sure that the programs are going on the right timeline, spending is going on the right time, and also that the quality is followed by all the program staff. But in many NGOs, they prefer that the M&E is going to be like, they prefer that M&E is a separate department. So sometimes they have programs manager and they have a mill advisor. The mill advisor is at the same level of the programs manager, and then it's like a separated. But yeah, it depends on the NGO and how the NGO wants their structure to be. But in general, M&E is helping programs. Yes. I talked before about the values, and I didn't talk a lot about the values and how we do it, because we don't have a lot of time today to discuss in details. We will have the group sessions during the week, and we will make sure that we go on details and discuss all about them. But for sure, every NGO needs to be neutral, need to be accountable, need to be they need to, like, for example, to be transparent, to be, there are a lot of values. Usually we try to have values. Sometimes most of the NGOs, they try to select the values that help them to look good in front of the donors. But we need to think again about our values, because our values are very important, because it helps us. I mean, these values help us to create the culture of the NGO. So we will talk more separately, and also we can discuss this on LinkedIn group. So yes, we have this pyramid. Our pyramid, sometimes we call it inverted funnel. It's like a funnel, inverted funnel. So this funnel or pyramid is starting from donor prospects, NGO donor fit, proposals, negotiation with donors, and then the funding. If you notice that the peak or the apex of the pyramid is funding. So we do everything below at all levels to make sure that we reach the funding. And the funding is our target by having the program strategy or the funding strategy. For sure, we will need a lot of details to go onto each one of these steps, and that's why we will have at least, for example, the NGO donor fit. We will need at least 2 sessions to talk about it. We will have 1 session to talk about donor prospects. We will have 5 sessions for proposals, and then we will talk about 1 session for negotiation, and then we will have about 5 sessions on funding. So all the program is around this pyramid. Now, if as we mentioned that funding is the only business model for the NGOs, now the NGOs need to know what are the funding types, what kind of funds they could reach or they could fundraise for. Yeah, NGOs need to diversify funding to be sustainable, and usually there are 2 types, which is the restricted funds and the unrestricted funds. What is the difference between both of them? The restricted funds are usually the funding received from international donors or even from local donors. if we receive the funding by signing agreements, mentioning like a geographic area, mentioning certain number of beneficiaries, and mentioning like a logical framework, what kind of impact, what kind of indicators, outputs, activities, if it is included in the agreement, then the agreement and the budget and the funds related to this agreement is going to be restricted. And usually the NGOs that are depending on restricted funds, sometimes they call them donor dependent NGOs. This is very challenging for NGO founders and leaders and also executive team, is how to make sure that the NGO is not donor dependent. It's really difficult, and it takes more than 10 years for each NGO to not to be at least like 100% donor dependent. We could also explain more about this, but in general, any funding that is received by agreement is considered restricted funds. The other type is the unrestricted funds. The unrestricted funds is the best type of funds and the most difficult type of funds. So yeah, usually NGOs could spend this kind of money or funding anytime and anywhere. They could spend it for any beneficiaries. For example, if there is a disaster or if there is a sudden need somewhere, they can go on the same day. They can respond very efficiently. I mean, efficiently, timely, and the people will be very happy that the NGO come to them and supported them very quickly. But you notice that it's very difficult for the NGOs to create the unrestricted funds, especially in developing countries, because the people are not used to donate money for development and humanitarian. For example, in developing countries, usually the people are supporting religious or religious-based NGOs. Sometimes we call it, I mean, the NGOs are called faith-based NGOs. So they are based on beliefs and religious thoughts. So people are paying for the NGO because they think this is helping them to be good people. I mean, we all know these kind of donations, but it is very difficult to raise funds to build school or to support, for example, for people to have support small businesses. Usually it's too difficult to raise enough funds from the general population. So the unrestricted funds is very difficult for NGOs located on developing countries, while it's easier on developed countries like UK, USA, Germany, and other Western countries. During the next week, we will focus more on donor prospects. Here we have the table. We will go through all the tools that are available and mentioned in the table. These are the tables that, I mean, these are the tools and platforms that help the NGOs to get the lists of the donors. So each program manager need to have an access to these platforms to get the list of the donors that could support their program. Here I give some idea. For example, funds for NGOs, you need to subscribe to be able to access the donor lists and the calls for proposals. Also, in Portal365, we are having a subscription for $30 a month for 10 users. NGO Chrome, you could pay for $11 to get a PDF that contains 800 donors. There are like, for example, LinkedIn, you need to subscribe to be able to extract the information of the donors easily, but you are still able to look for donors on LinkedIn. The foundation centers, Snowview, GrantWatch, Network for Good. I mean, these are examples. Of course, these platforms are not the only platforms that have the lists of the donors, but this is going to help us to build our donor prospects base of the pyramid. So when we start to build the pyramid of the program funding strategy, we will need to visit these kind of platforms, and we will need to understand very clearly how many donors that would support our NGO or support our specific program. And usually these kind of donors are providing funding, and this funding is usually restricted. While there are other platforms that are doing unrestricted kind of funds, and when we talk about unrestricted funds, we are talking about crowdfunding platforms, and there are many crowdfunding platforms you could visit and try to apply for getting some funds. So, for example, we have Global Giving, we have YouHelp, GoFundMe, Indiegogo, Kickstarter, Fundly, Just Giving, Facebook, Patreon, Charity Navigator. These are kind of crowdfunding platforms, and usually these crowdfunding platforms, are also taking certain percentages of the funding. For example, if they raise $10,000, they will take at least 5 to 7% of the funding. We will also talk about NGO donor fit, and the NGO donor fit is usually how can we make sure that the NGO is fit with the donor, and also how can we make sure that the donor is fit with the NGO. And this is usually depending on geographic areas, strategy, and capacity. Every NGO should make sure that it has the capacity needed, the strategy, and like specific programs to work on, and also the geographic areas where the donor is targeting. This is also the NGO donor fit is not only applied for the NGO. It is usually applied. It is also applied for the donor. Sometimes the NGO is very strong and it has good capacity, but the donor has weak capacity. So the capacity of the donor is not enough to work with the NGO. That's why we mentioned NGO donor fit. So it's like from either side, they both need to work on the same targeted areas, have the same strategy, programs, and beneficiaries, and also require capacity to work together. We will talk a lot during the next few weeks about the NGO donor fit. For geographical fit, the NGOs need to be like geographically fitting with the donors. So the local donors are usually easy to meet, and NGOs need to meet the local donors more than the international donors, but also they need to think about them together. So the local donors, to find them, you need to make sure that you are a member in the network where they are always meet. For example, the clusters. For example, if you are working on health, you need to be member of the health cluster, and through the health cluster, you will be able to meet all or most of the donors of health. And the same goes for WASH, for food security, for protection, and so on. Okay, and also the NGO donor fit, also in terms of strategy fit, usually each strategy for the donor and for the NGO should focus mainly on people. So beneficiaries need to be the center of the target. when we have a funding strategy or NGO strategy or programs strategy, the person or the affected people, the vulnerable people, the beneficiaries should be the target and should be the heart of all what we do. And then we have the families and community, also the service providers. We have the local authorities at district government level. So it's like we see local and central level. All of these are part of the strategy, and they should be part of it, and they should be included in the strategy. And then we have the NGO donor fit. Here we will talk about the capacity fit. As part of the NGO donor fit, the capacity fit. How the NGO is looking to the donor, or how the donor is looking to the NGO. Usually the NGO look to the donor as the green inverted pyramid, the productivity pyramid, while the donor is looking to the NGO as a risk pyramid. So so it's like the capacity fit is around productivity and risk. Also, if we match them together, we will have this kind of pyramid. Every NGO is having a level of capacity, and the donor usually know exactly where this NGO is, or what level of capacity the NGO is having. If the NGO is newly established, usually the donors think that this NGO is opportunistic. It's very difficult for the donors to work with opportunistic level or capacitated donors. And also, when the NGO improve, they become reactive. They also, if you notice that the more the NGO is growing, the less the risk and the more the productivity. So we will have opportunistic NGOs, we will have reactive NGOs, we will have proactive NGOs, we will have scalable NGOs, we will have sustainable NGOs. Why are we talking about these levels? Because usually NGOs need to be sustainable, and they need to make sure that to be sustainable, they need to have certain criteria, and also there is no way for any NGO to be sustainable if they can't go through all levels. The NGO will have to climb the stairs. They have to climb all the levels of the pyramid. So to make the pyramid more clear, usually the donors think that the NGO that is at the first level or the opportunistic, the donors will try not to support this NGO. If the NGO is reactive, then there will be a possibility that the donor will start thinking to support the NGO. If the NGO is becoming the third level of capacity or proactive, there will be a lot of available partners and donors, and also many donors will try to reach the NGOs to work with. But very few NGOs could make it and become scalable and become trusted partner for the NGO, for the donors. And this has like a lot of procedures and steps, and it needs a lot of efforts to be trusted partner. And then the last level will be the preferred partner, which is the sustainable NGO. And if you notice here, only those that have self-financing, that are having restricted funding, and those who are investing on research and development or create innovations, these are the only NGOs that could be sustainable on the long run. So we will talk more about like these kind of steps and criteria and what is required in the next few weeks. Now, if we talk about the NGO donor fit and the capacity fit, and we have a summary. This is like the table that summarize everything. So for example, the opportunistic NGO, the first level NGO, usually is having the biggest challenge, which is funding. Funding is the biggest challenge for opportunistic level capacitated NGOs. So they will not reach the donors required to fund their programs, because actually they don't have programs and they don't have strategy. So they have to go to traditional donor individuals. They have to go to individuals to donate for them, to sponsor their activities. So usually they are getting funding from individuals. So the type of activities they are doing is seasonal. They are doing like distribution of clothes, winter clothes. They are doing, for example, they distribute food baskets during like certain events or occasions. For example, during like religious events, like in for example in Yemen, we have Eid al-Adha, Eid al-Fitr. Usually during these events, we distribute clothes, or we distribute food, meat, whatever. On Ramadan, for example, people are donating a lot, so we could feed many people during Ramadan for breakfasting. So the first level of NGOs usually are depending on the seasonal kind of activities and also individual donations. So that we do not expect effectiveness or quality from their work. And then the next level NGOs, they start to get into limited donors. The biggest challenge for them is to build the capacity of the team, and to have strong team to help them to reach more donors and to implement the projects and to prepare reports in the right way. So this is the biggest challenge for level 2 NGOs. That's why they are implementing intermittent projects. They don't have continuous projects, only intermittent. And then the level of effectiveness is activity level, and the level of quality is inspection. The proactive NGOs, and this is the most important level of capacity that each NGO should reach. Usually the NGO that is on this level is having multiple donations or multiple donors. The biggest challenge is organizing and how to improve the NGO capacity as an NGO, and how to align, how to make sure that their policies, strategies are close and similar to the donors and the government strategies. So the organizing in terms of policies and strategies and even the structure is the biggest challenge for NGOs in this level. But they are successful, so they are starting to implement continuous projects. They started to have output level of achievements, and they start to apply quality control. The scalable kind of the scalable level of NGOs, they start to have diversified funds, so they start to have restricted funding from donors, but from many donors, and also they have some unrestricted funding. That's one. And also they don't depend on like the NGO that is scalable. They don't have 50% of their funding coming from one donor. So in order So in order to have the NGO at the fourth level as a scalable and diversified funds, they should have many donors, and no single donor should bring them more than 50% of their funding. And at this level, there is like the challenge is becoming the quality. Usually NGOs that receive many funding and they are having many donors, they start to struggle a lot, and their biggest challenge is becoming quality. The biggest challenge is quality, but they started to have continuous programs. If you notice here, that here we were talking about projects. Here we were talking about projects in the second level, and here we were talking about activities. Only in the fourth level we are talking about programs. So usually when we talk about programs management and programs managers, the programs manager should think as a fourth level. The programs manager should learn, act, and plan the strategies at the level 4. There should be a continuous interventions, and the projects need to be continuous at the program level, and they should start think about the outcomes. They don't just care about outputs, but they are working on the outcomes. So they start to do, for example, when the NGO is doing a project final evaluation, they start to do post-distribution monitoring. They start to do beneficiary satisfaction surveys. They started to make sure that people are understanding how to, like, for example, they try to be accountable, they apply the complaints and feedback mechanism. These are all signs that the NGO is working at the fourth level. And at this level, the quality should be like quality assurance at this level. The capacity level at number 5 is the sustainable, and this is the final goal, and it's not just only a goal to reach, but the difficult part is how to keep sustainable. So the NGOs that are sustainable, we just mentioned before that they are self-financing, so they already have their own resources of funding, and also they have diversified funding, and they have unrestricted funding. The biggest challenge for the level 5 NGOs is the change. They are starting to suffer from changing the strategies, changing leadership, strategy, like the mentality of the leadership started, like the challenge in even changing the donors. So like the change on level 5 is the biggest challenge. The activities is usually scaled. There are programs and services. People are able to get these services on continuous basis. So for example, the NGOs that are sustainable, they are for example, they have built hospitals, they have schools, they have rehabilitation centers that they are managing themselves. They are not just supporting others while they do not manage it themselves. So yeah, NGOs that already built and provide services and support others on continuous basis without having funds from donors, they are becoming like sustainable. And here only we can create impact because we are sustainable. And because impact usually takes time, and if we are able to sustain the services and programs in the same geographic areas for a very long time, then we will create the impact. And here we can say that there is a quality excellence. This table is or has taken a lot of our time today. We will still go through it many times during the coming few weeks. the only thing is that I need to mention and repeat maybe is that we will continue to focus on how to make NGOs sustainable and how to make sure that if to be sustainable, they need to be strong in the funding. So if we have a question now, when or why do we need a funding strategy? Why do we need programs strategy or a funding strategy? Usually we need a strategy and the funding strategy to be at least on level 4. So usually NGOs need a strategy and need to have a funding strategy so that they reach level 4. There is no NGO that could reach level 4 without having a funding strategy. That's the important or the biggest sign for the NGO at this level. Next week, what we will do next week is to work on the strategy, and we will talk about both the program's strategy in terms of strategic objectives and key performance indicators, but also we will talk about how can we create the funding pyramid, and we will work on that during like the whole week. We will share, we will discuss, we will meet together separately to discuss a lot about the funding strategy of each. I'll try to be to accelerate. I will try now to talk quickly because we still have only 3 slides. So thank you so much for being with me all this time. I will try not to continue for I'm sorry for this interruption. This has never happened. We were lost from the network. So yes, I will go back so we could finalize very quickly. Yes. Yeah, as I just mentioned, thank you so much for continuing with me all this time, and I will try to be very fast now so that we finalize today and we discuss about the next steps and what we should do during the coming week. This is just a comparison for the program manager and the project manager. Because usually we keep discussion or discussing about what is the difference between program manager or programs manager and the project manager. The reference of work for the program manager is usually the strategic plan of the program and the NGO, and that's why we need to develop and to update the program strategy, because without the strategy we will not have we will not have a program. So we need a program. We need the strategic plan to have a program, while the project manager only is depending on the proposal document and the agreement with the donor. The number of projects, usually the program manager has many projects, while the program manager is only manager for one project. The performance indicators and targets, if we want to do assessment for the quality if we want to measure the success and the quality of work, or if we want to make sure that the program is successful, we will measure the strategic objectives and key performance indicators and targets. While for the project manager, we will talk about logical framework, project indicators and targets. The duration, the programs are usually between 3 and 35 years. So to have a program or a sector, usually it's between 3 to 35 years. This is the life cycle of the program. While the projects are sometimes between 3 months to 5 years. It's very rare to find a project that is more than 5 years. This is like sometimes we have projects only for 3 months. In terms of funding, usually the programs manager is having portfolio of funds from many donors, while the project manager has only one budget and one donor, or sometimes more than one donor. The time spent at work is like for a program manager to be a true programs manager or a program manager, you need to spend at least 50% of your time doing fundraising and 50% of your time for implementation. While the project manager needs to spend 100% implementation. Usually the project manager never think about funding. They just think about implementation and management and execution. The achievement reports. Usually the programs manager should have a quarterly reports, semi-annual reports, annual reports for the program and the NGO. While the project manager have the same like timing as quarterly, midterm, and final, but only for the project. The skills required. The program manager needs proposal writing, needs project management, M&E, and report writing. The project manager needs only project management, some M&E, and reporting writing, report writing. So the biggest difference or the biggest sign that this person could be a great program manager is the person who is having the capacity to search for donors and to apply for funding, or at least to work with the team and develop the proposals. The personality of the program manager. To be a great program manager, you need to be a leader, and you need to be a manager, and you need to be a seller and advocate. A leader because you need to be proud of your NGO and the cause or the program you are trying to work on. You need to inspire your team, to teach your team. So you, like when we say a leader, you need also to be a teacher. You need to teach your team to provide advices, to support your team, to care about the team. That's one thing. And also to be a manager, you need to be good in planning, coordination, implementation, monitoring, evaluation, reporting, and supervision. You need to be a seller. A seller, I mean by a seller is that you are the one who is representing the NGO most of the time. So when you represent, like when you meet donors or stakeholders, you need not to represent yourself. You need to represent the NGO. So you should care about the NGO brand, not your brand as a person. You need to update. I'm just giving you an idea. For example, when you are on LinkedIn, you need to think a lot about the LinkedIn profile. You need to make sure that your position is mentioned, where you are working and what kind of tasks you are trying to achieve with your NGO. You need to keep your profile updated. You should post the achievements in your program. While if you need also to be an advocate, so you should be the best one to talk about your program. You need to advocate for the vision, the mission, and values of your NGO, and also you need to speak about the problem you are trying to solve by your program. You need to be able to meet donors, stakeholders, and also to NGO staff, and talk a lot about your programs and your vision and mission and values. The visibility. The visibility, usually we have two types of visibility: the visibility of the NGO and the visibility of the program manager. The programs manager or the program manager should think about the website and also the LinkedIn account. Maybe I'm talking a lot about the LinkedIn because I would give you an advice. That's my personal advice for sure. If you want to take, you need to think a lot about LinkedIn. You need to forget a lot about Facebook, Twitter, and other kind of platforms. So yeah, you need to think a lot about LinkedIn, and you will discover more about this because we will try to work on together. The programs manager need to make sure that their website is updated. The NGO website is updated in English. So all the news and updates should be posted on regular basis. Also, the reports, if possible, to put them on the website. The LinkedIn account of the NGO is updated also, and also the program. The NGO staff and the program staff, they should all together be having LinkedIn profiles, and they should all add the NGO as their place of work. So this is helping to improve the visibility of the NGO in front of donors. Usually we find donors on LinkedIn, not on Facebook. We find donors on LinkedIn, not on Twitter. So this is a kind of advice I really hope you take into consideration. While the visibility of the program manager is, I will also limit my advice on LinkedIn. You need to improve your personal brand on LinkedIn. So you need to update your, if you don't have a LinkedIn account, I would advise you to create a LinkedIn account and update it. We will show you like a sample how you create your LinkedIn account. You need to share your programs updates, news and stories as posts or articles on LinkedIn. You need to create meaningful connections with specialists in your sector and also with donors. Because usually the decision makers and donors are usually available on LinkedIn. Now I will go to the last slide for today. We will have 4 things to do as an assignment. This week assignment, we will need to set your personal LinkedIn account. So please, every one of you needs to create a LinkedIn account. If you have already a LinkedIn account, we will talk how it needs or how we could improve it. We need to set your NGO account also on LinkedIn. Your NGO need to be on LinkedIn, and so you need also to make sure that your NGO account on LinkedIn is also available. Then we will add you to the training group, batch 1. We will add you to the LinkedIn group created mainly for the members attending this training. So we will discuss many things on this LinkedIn group. The last thing is that you need to develop or review the vision, mission, and values of your NGO. I will schedule a meeting with every NGO during the week. I will meet with you half an hour to 1 hour with each NGO and discuss about the vision, mission, and values. And hopefully we could by next week we will have your vision, mission, and values ready, and that we are all joined the LinkedIn group, so we could share updates and discuss. And also you need if any one of you wants to talk to me, you can talk to me anytime on LinkedIn. So I will be available. I will be able to answer your questions, to discuss anything you want. On like you write me a personal message on LinkedIn, or if it's like a question you need others to discuss, you could put it as a post on the LinkedIn group. That's all for today. The last thing I would just share with you. I will just see the questions if we have questions, and also I will share with you my LinkedIn account and go through my LinkedIn account to just to highlight some content from the LinkedIn account. Yes, my LinkedIn account. Yes, great. Yeah, so I think I lost the questions because I lost the connection before. Hopefully there were no many questions. Yeah, as NMO office commented, programs manager should be or should have excellent communication skills. Exactly, you need to have communication skills because you need to communicate with donors and stakeholders all the time, and also your staff. I will share with you now my LinkedIn profile. So we also we will have the recorded session. The session will be recorded. We will put it on a link where you could re-watch the session if you need to watch the session again. We will put it maybe on a YouTube, but it will not like the YouTube link will not be shared with everyone. It will be just for the training participants. The budget management for the programs manager, for sure, it's part of the skills that need to be acquired and practiced by the program manager. It's part of the management. So we mentioned that like he or she needs to be a manager, and the budget is part of the management, and that's why we will talk about it. The budget, how can we develop the budget, and maybe how to develop the spending plan, and how to have the spending tracking. Yes, I will share with you my LinkedIn account, and I hope you those of you who have a LinkedIn account, please add me as a like connect with me, so I can add you to the LinkedIn group. Yes, let me open my LinkedIn account. Here is my LinkedIn account. You need to have like when you create your account, you need to have a picture in your account, but the picture need to be professional. Don't put pictures like, for example, as if you are on Instagram or LinkedIn. For example, there are people who put a picture that is like that he is really smiling as if he is on a party, for example, or a picture that is not clear. For women who can't show their if you can't show your picture, you could have a good picture, for example, a design picture, something that is friendly but and also professional. So you need to make the picture of your profile professional. That's the first part. You will need to have, as you mentioned here, what is the important part in this line? I said helping NGOs to grow and create impact like heroes. What I mean here, the most important part from this line is NGOs or helping NGOs. So I'm mentioning what I am doing and who are my customers, for example. So helping NGOs. anyone clicked on my account, he or she will see that I am helping NGOs. So I'm trying to attract people to connect with me and talk to me on LinkedIn. Those who are interested in, on NGOs, they will be able to discover more about me from the first 2 words. So you need to write something here that is very clear, that tells others who you are and what you are doing. So you need to have this. You need to have a picture. For example, here we have the grant writing and management. So this is helping us to show who we are. Yes, that's one thing. I have about, this is about me, small part about me. I mentioned my position and where I work and since when. I wrote something about what we are doing on my NGO or on Portal. And here I talked about my previous work. For example, I worked for NFDHR and I talked what I have done with NFDHR. I talked about Oxfam and I talked that I was working as a governance program manager and what I was doing as a governance program manager. Also that I worked as a humanitarian program officer for when and what I have done. I worked as advocacy officer for Counterpart International or RGB in Yemen, what I have done. For WHO as a technical officer for humanitarian action and what I was doing. So in general, like I mentioned, like Yemen Family Care Association and with the Yemeni Women Union and World Bank, because I was a project manager implemented by a Yemeni Women Union. This kind of project, I mentioned here what I was doing and when I worked there. So yeah, I talked about all my experiences. So it's clear if you want to read about me, about my career, about my CV, what I have done before, you can go to my LinkedIn profile and read everything about me. Also, where I studied, what kind of, like I have a postgraduate diploma or it's a master degree, but I didn't finish it, so I have just the diploma on international development and gender. I have a bachelor degree on medicine from Salah University. Also, here there are some skills, and here I have some recommendations. So, for example, I have this recommendation from my previous managers or colleagues. For example, I have given I have received recommendations from Faris, from Lorena, from Sadiq, from Kamal, from Fatma Uqba. These people I have worked with them, and all of them are linked to my career. Like some of them I worked in NFDHR, some of them I have worked with on Counterpart International, some of them I have worked with them on WHO and so on. So I have these recommendations, and also my accomplishments, what kind of courses and what kind of publications I have. For example, here I have a grant writing book. I participated in a final evaluation. So it's like I am putting the publications that are available online. So if you want to see them, you have a link to them, and so on. So this is I'm just giving you an idea how my profile is looks like. But just to give you an idea, to have my profile looks like that, I didn't do it alone. So I have gone through many trainings on LinkedIn. So many advisors and experts, explained for us and trained us how to improve that LinkedIn profile. And at the beginning, we didn't understand why it is important to have a LinkedIn profile. But like day after day, I become more knowledgeable and more aware that LinkedIn profile is really important, and it will help me. And also, I am sure from my experience working on NGOs that LinkedIn is really important for NGOs, and that it will help your NGO a lot. So this is again, I repeated it, maybe I repeated this advice many times, and I will be happy to connect with you, and then I will those who are connected with me, I will open this NGO programs managers training. So this is our group. I will add you here, and we will start posting and talking and talking to each other. So you can talk to us through LinkedIn. That's one thing, and also you could talk to us through this. You could talk to us through our website. You can go to our website and talk to us. I think if you open our website, you will have this chat box. You can talk to us anytime, and we will answer to you. We will be available anytime. So talk to us. We will be happy to respond. And thank you again for being with me and for taking the time. Of course, it's difficult for all of you to participate in this time. That's why on LinkedIn profile, I will put a question for different timing. For example, I will say, is this time good for you? And then we will have voting. And then the more you vote for one time, the more we select, and we all keep doing the training on that time. So yeah, I will put the question on the LinkedIn group. Thank you so much for your time, and all the best. I will hope that you will listen again, or you will watch again this to this presentation. And also, we will send you the PDF of the presentation, so you could go to the assignment and work on your vision, mission, and values. Many thanks again, and all the best. Bye-bye. ممكن إذا حد عنده أي أسئلة قبل ما نخرج I'm available يعني.